Good evening. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Ellison Barber in for Gadi. Schwartz coming to you from New York. Here's some of the stories we are watching tonight, starting with a plane that crashed in Russia, believed to be carrying Yevgeny Prigozhin, who led a short-lived mutiny against Russia's military leadership.
I don't know for a fact what happened, but I'm not surprised. Not much that happens when Russia is not behind. I don't know enough to know the answer.
Right now, U.S. officials say they cannot confirm Prigozhin's death, but Russian state media has posted a video that appears to show a plane falling from the sky. The first Republican presidential debate kicks off tonight in Milwaukee without frontrunner Donald Trump, which seems to raise two questions. One, what's the point? And two, how will the candidates take advantage of his absence? Rudy Giuliani is the latest Trump co-defendant in the Georgia election interference case to turn himself in.
I do not in any way admit the truth of those allegations. Those allegations are totally false.
You did not contest that you made fraudulent claims about the 2020 election, though, Mr. Mayor.
Absolutely wrong, and you're lying, as you often do.
And police in San Antonio are looking for a suspect who threw a 5-foot spear through a person's windshield. We start tonight with that developing news out of Russia. A private plane crashed just north of Moscow earlier today. 10 people were on board, and according to Russian state media, Yevgeny Prigozhin, the leader of the Wagner mercenary group, was among them. Russian state media claims the passenger list had Prigozhin's first and last name on it, and a pro-Wagner Telegram channel called Gray Zone appeared to confirm that news, writing that Prigozhin died because of, quote, actions by traitors of Russia. NBC News has not independently verified these claims just yet. We did, however, geolocate these videos, which show a plane falling just north of Moscow. And then the site of the crash itself, flames erupting from what is apparently the wing of the plane. In a statement, the Russian Aviation Authority says they've created a special commission to investigate the plane crash. Now, you might remember Prigozhin as the man who led that failed mutiny against Putin earlier this year. He was going to be exiled to Belarus, but for weeks, no independent group or journalist could confirm that or figure out where he was. Then in mid-July, a video appeared online seeming to show him in Belarus. Then he went quiet again until earlier this week when he released this 41-second video vowing to make Africa more free and Russia even greater on every continent. Again, we do want to repeat that NBC News has not independently verified claims of Prigozhin's death as of right now. Let's bring in NBC News correspondent Josh Letterman. Josh, we're being cautious here because information that comes from Russian media is not always reliable. The government controls most of the news there, and this is still a very developing story. But what do we know right now?
Well, you're right to be cautious about this, Ellison. What we do know is that that plane took off from Moscow, heading to St. Petersburg, which is Yevgeny Prigozhin's hometown. And just about 30 minutes into that flight, it fell out of the sky like a rock. Aviation experts who have examined some of the video of that plane for NBC News have said it doesn't look like a plane that had some type of engine failure, slowly glided to the ground. It looks like a plane that either was blown up from the inside or possibly hit with something that clearly had a catastrophic incident. And we're hearing now from authorities in Russia who are saying that the bodies of all 10 people who were on board that plane have now been found. That is bringing us just one step closer to being able to say more definitively that Yevgeny Prigozhin was indeed on that plane and is now dead, Ellison.
Josh, all of this comes, what, a day after that 41-second video, which was released and seemed to kind of hint on Prigozhin's whereabouts, on where he's speaking. And then he's on this plane in Russia that crashes 2 months to the day since his failed mutiny attempt. What do we know about Prigozhin's whereabouts in the last few weeks, few months?
Well, the short answer is not a lot. We know that that video was purportedly shot in Africa, and we know that Yevgeny Prigozhin has been making a real effort since that attempted mutiny 2 months ago to make clear that even though the Wagner Group was not going to be active on the battleground in Ukraine anymore, that it was going to be active in Africa, where the Wagner Group has long played a major role, has done a lot of business helping prop up governments there. And so one thing that is clear, even though we cannot definitively say when that video that is said to be from Africa was shot, in fact, U.S. officials have said they believe it may actually be older, it is clear that Yevgeny Prigozhin spent the last days of his life trying to make clear that his Wagner Group was going to stay active in Africa and was not going anywhere.
So, Josh, has the Wagner Group commented on his possible death so far? You know, they're often referred to as Putin's private army. If Prigozhin is in fact dead, could we see a Putin ally step in to run that mercenary group?
We certainly could. The Wagner Group, in an official capacity, hasn't really responded yet, but we've seen a number of social media groups, Telegram groups that are linked to the Wagner Group. They have been responding, calling him a martyr, saying that he was a patriot. They say they have confirmed that he has, in fact, died. And we've also seen some vigils popping up at restaurants believed to be owned by Yevgeny Prigozhin at the headquarters of his company. And in the meantime, a lot of speculation in Russia about who could replace him if he's in fact dead. One name that is coming to the forefront is actually a former colonel in the Russian military who President Putin floated in the immediate aftermath of that attempted mutiny as a possible replacement to run the Wagner Group. So far we don't know who, if anyone, will replace him, but certainly the names are already starting to leak out about potential successors.
All right, Josh Letterman, thank you. So look, Prigozhin's name kind of became a household name of sorts around the world after his group led that mutiny march towards Moscow. It was considered by many to be the first real threat to Putin's power in years. But since then, as Josh was explaining, the fate of Prigozhin has been pretty unknown. No charges were brought forward. He maybe left the country, maybe didn't. Russia launched a supposed investigation into the mutiny. But now the circumstances surrounding Prigozhin's alleged death are also raising a lot of eyebrows. So let's get into all of it and go a little bit deeper with NBC News international affairs analyst and former U.S. ambassador to Russia, Michael McFaul. Mike, you know, there has always been this question when it comes to the Wagner Group. And I remember reporting in Ukraine when Prigozhin was threatening to take all of his troops out of Bakhmut. And a lot of people were saying, well, do we even know if he can do that? Because you can call something private in Russia, but oftentimes things aren't really that private in Russia. It's different than what private is in the United States, right? President Biden seemed to touch on that today when he was saying there is not a whole lot that happens in Russia without Putin's stamp. What's your take on that?
Well, you're absolutely right. There's no such thing as private, especially when it comes to military groups. Yes, the Wagner Group was a private company, but 100% paid for by the Russian government. Number two, as the president said, not much happens in Russia without Mr. Putin. So it's reasonably to assume that this was ordered by Vladimir Putin. Most of us, most certainly I did 2 months ago, thought that Prigozhin was in big trouble and that he should be very careful. But then he got very lax. He got very comfortable. He kept going to Russia. He even showed up. He was doing parallel meetings with African leaders while President Putin was meeting with them in St. Petersburg. And so it created this image that everything was fine with Putin until today. And that leaves the question, why didn't it happen earlier? Why did it happen in such a dramatic way? I mean, why couldn't he have arrested him or other ways to bring him in? But today it appears that Putin sought revenge, and that he has a history of doing. People that he calls traitors, he never forgets. He tends to chase them down and do things like allegedly he did today.
Do you think that is the message here? Is this Putin sending a message to his people, to other Wagner fighters, adversaries, to say, hey, don't mess with us, we'll find you and get you eventually? Or do you think this is more of an indication of what a lot of people thought was the case after that failed mutiny, that Putin doesn't have as much of control inside Russia as maybe he would like the world to think?
Great question. And I don't know the answer. And maybe the answer is both are true. Let me explain. So, yes, this is a signal to anybody that wants to challenge Putin inside the military that this is the fate that might come to you as well. Without question, it's a shot across the bow. At the same time, Prigozhin did have a lot of support. He had his thousands of fighters. These are criminals. These are terrorists. These are mercenaries. Let's be clear who they are. But they fought in the eyes of other Russians, not me, heroically in Ukraine. And so he's got those people, the people that were taking selfies of him when he was in Rostov a couple months ago. You got to wonder what they think about what happened here. And secondly, as you were just talking with Josh about, there is chatter from Prigozhin's people, his Wagner mercenaries, saying they want to seek revenge. They don't like what had happened. And if you've been fighting with this guy for years and years and years, he's your leader, and he's suddenly just shot down out of the air or an explosion that take him out of the air. I'm not so sure those people are just going to want to go and join up with Vladimir Putin and the armed forces tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, do you think we could see some sort of response from Wagner's quote-unquote soldiers? I mean, this is a group of people who have been incredibly important to Russia, not just in the war in Ukraine, but also in Africa, also in Syria. It kind of seems like they're at this stalemate where Putin definitely needs them, but if they have all this loyalty to Prigozhin, as you're implying, I mean, will they kind of just go quietly and say, okay, or do you think we will see something else here?
I don't know. But that's a really important question to watch for the future. The first thing, these are just thugs that get paid to kill, right? So if another leader comes along that will pay them to do the awful things they do around the world, maybe they'll just step in line. But I think there, especially if you watched, and I did over the course of the war, what people were saying about them when they fought in the city of Bakhmut, in particular in Ukraine, they were revered as fierce fighters, as people that were brave. Some of them, were celebrated as heroes. And even Putin himself from time to time would talk about them that way. So I don't think this is the last chapter in this drama between Putin and these Wagner forces.
I have to ask you quickly about some of the theories out there, the speculation that maybe he is not dead at all, that maybe Prigozhin has staged this himself. What do you make of all of that? Do you think he is definitely dead?
Again, I don't know for sure. I'm reading lots of different sources in Russia. It seems to me that he is dead. The names have now been released on quasi channels, official channels. It seems like he is. But he's the master of disguise. He had 2 planes. He's done this before. So I think it's a very low probability that he's still alive, but I wouldn't be surprised by it.
All right. So much to watch moving forward. Ambassador Michael McFaul, thank you. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
We are just minutes away from the first presidential debate of the primary season. 8 candidates are about to take the stage in Milwaukee. They will have 2 hours to make their case to Republican primary voters around the country. But they will do it without the frontrunner, Donald Trump. The former president citing his commanding lead as a reason he doesn't feel he needs to show up. Instead, he says he will take part in a pre-taped interview. It's already happened, that will air tonight with former Fox News host Tucker Carlson, again airing at the same time of the debate. Watch.
Whatever you think of Trump, he is, as of tonight, the indisputable far and away frontrunner in the Republican race. We think voters have an interest in hearing what he thinks.
So what are voters in Wisconsin saying? Here's what a few of them shared with our NBC teams in Milwaukee.
I am a Trump supporter. I will not be backing Christie. I know that for a fact. And so I really want to hear some of the fresh ideas.
If I see that they have good stuff to offer, new changes in things that the Latino community can benefit from, they have my vote.
We'll have to see what positions they have on the economy and certainly on foreign affairs, especially with Ukraine and the war.
Ali Vitale is in Milwaukee. Ali, set the scene for us. What's the mood been like so far today?
Hi, my friend. You know how this feels just about an hour before the debate gets going. More people start coming into this hall. You start seeing more surrogates for the campaigns come in, and the spin starts early. We've been hearing from these campaigns for days now. People like Ron DeSantis' team making clear they know he's got a target on his back. Senator Tim Scott's team tells me they're not looking at tonight as make or break. Instead, literally banking on the amount of money that they have in the bank for the rest of the campaign, saying that he's going to be able to go on regardless. Then there's others like former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley, who does need this for a fundraising moment and does see this as a moment where she could finally break through. I think it's notable and important to point out that if it's a question of differentiating and contrast, certainly she's going to be different and be a contrast simply because she's the only woman that's on this stage. And I think the lack of Trump factor is a notable one, especially for people who served in his administration, like Haley, but also like former Vice President Mike Pence. This is his chance to introduce himself to the largest audience yet as not a member of the Trump-Pence ticket, but just Pence, what that administration could look like. He will, of course, be vying for one of the most conservative positions on the stage. That's something that another person on the stage, Senator Tim Scott, says that he hopes to see, and that's what his allies told me they think he's going to project tonight. Watch.
And so what we see with the national polls, you see Donald Trump, who everybody knows, whether it's California, Oregon, or Washington, but the chance to meet Tim Scott tonight for America, I think is going to convince a lot of people that he is the right person to lead this country.
And look, that's former Colorado Senator Cory Gardner, who's now the head of Tim Scott's super PAC. They are, of course, close friends from their time in the Senate. But I think that Gardner makes an interesting point here. The lack of Trump factor on the stage is going to be notable because even if he's not there, he's still looming large over everything. But while there is a school of thought that says there was no political upside to Trump being on this stage because all attacks would flow at him, that could be correct, but there's also a world in which other Republicans here have said to me that could backfire because it does give these other candidates a chance to at least present themselves without someone like Trump constantly shoehorning himself into the conversation and taking the oxygen out of the room as he always does.
Allie, you know, a lot of these candidates, we've seen them try and walk this sort of line where they talk about the legal issues surrounding the former president, but don't quite go after him or hit him too hard. Do you think we could maybe see that change tonight?
Yeah. I think it's unlikely, Ellison, and I think that there's another reminder of why. Certainly over the course of the campaign, we know how much the base is specifically behind the former president. You watch Trump continuously after indictments 1, 2, 3, and now 4, continuously stay atop the polls for this Republican Party primary. But I think that in our NBC Iowa poll that we just put out, I think it's 16% of Iowa Republican voters say that's the only amount that want to hear someone go after Trump. It's unpopular among voters to attack him. And I think that's why you see so few of them doing it, despite the fact that it's frankly quite strange to watch the field almost ignore the obvious attacks on the person who they will ultimately have to beat if they want to be the front runner themselves.
All right, Allie Vitale live in Milwaukee for us. Thank you. We appreciate it. And don't miss our Meet the Press special after the debate. It will be moderated by NBC News political director Chuck Todd. He will be up late with complete analysis of the first Republican face-off. That is going to be tonight at 11 p.m. Eastern on NBC News Now. Tomorrow, former President Donald Trump is expected to surrender to authorities in Fulton County, Georgia. But today, all eyes were on his former lawyer, Rudy Giuliani. He was booked at the Fulton County Jail this afternoon with the mugshot to prove it. Both he and the president face 13 charges in the Georgia case, including racketeering. Both have denied any wrongdoing. Let's bring in NBC's Vaughn Hilliard, who is in Atlanta for us tonight. Vaughn, walk me through what happened today with Giuliani. We saw you, and he had a bit of an exchange.
Right, Ellison. For Rudy Giuliani, this is notable. The former mayor and former personal lawyer to Donald Trump. He ultimately came in and was processed, booked, fingerprinted, and a mugshot. And for Rudy Giuliani, I want to let you hear, because he was talking with reporters and answering some shouted questions here outside of the jail upon leaving. And I want to let you hear what he said in response to my question, which pertained to last month. He, in a defamation case, he did not contest the fact that he had previously made false statements related to voter fraud claims here in the state of Georgia. Take a listen to his response this afternoon.
I entered into a stipulation for the purposes of that case to move on. I specifically says I do not in any way admit the truth of those allegations. Those allegations are totally false.
You did not contest that you made fraudulent claims about the 2020 election, though, Mr. Mayor.
Absolutely wrong, and you're lying, as you often do. If you read it, it says it was only for the purposes of that case, and it was not an admission.
You had the opportunity to refute it, though, Mr. Mayor.
Mayor, that's it. We gotta go. We gotta go.
For Rudy Giuliani, he is defiant, and he said that he will not plead you will not plead guilty in this case here, and he will take this to trial. He has two attorneys who are with him here today in Georgia. For Rudy Giuliani, he is very much going to stand in solidarity based off of his words here upon leaving the jail today. He's going to stand in solidarity with former President Trump, who is slated to be appearing here for his booking tomorrow.
Vaughn, there are 19 co-defendants in total. Obviously, former President Donald Trump, one of them. How many have been booked so far? And walk us through what we expect when the former president turns himself in tomorrow.
9 out of the 19 co-defendants have now turned themselves in. You can see the graphic. Today, Kenneth Chesebro, who is one of Trump's attorneys, he turned himself in. And then you had the likes of Rudy Giuliani, as well as Jenna Ellis and Sidney Powell. Those were the four, after John Eastman yesterday, the four individuals who were working in capacities of counsel to Donald Trump at the time, who the indictment alleges were part of particularly the effort to put together the fake elector scheme on behalf of Donald Trump and ultimately overturn the election results here in Georgia, Ellison.
All right, Vaughn Hilliard in Atlanta there. Thank you. We appreciate it. All right, coming up, the official Hawaii wildfire death toll is over 100, but there are still over 1,000 people missing. Also, tropical storm season, that is heating up. There is a storm right now roaring toward the Dominican Republic and Haiti right now. And it's not the only storm we are tracking in the Atlantic tonight. And an eviction notice in Pittsburgh turned into a shootout with police. All this coming up, so stay tuned now.
She's with the police officer. Good. Good.
Welcome back. Here are some of the other headlines we're watching tonight. Authorities in Philadelphia say a police officer there will be fired. The decision comes one day after security footage was released showing the officer fatally shooting a man sitting in his car just seconds after pulling up to his vehicle. An investigation into the shooting remains ongoing. A North Carolina woman was arrested for allegedly faking her own murder. Police say she used an app to conceal her identity and sent text messages to a friend claiming she had been beaten to death. Police found her last weekend and arrested her on Monday. In a Facebook post, the police department condemned the actions and described them as a, quote, distraction from other duties. Police in Texas are looking for someone who apparently threw a spear, that's right, a spear, through a woman's windshield while she was driving down a highway. She says she feels lucky to be alive. Apparently, it was a completely random act, and police have no idea who did it or why. A 7-year-old boy was hospitalized with non-life-threatening injuries after a bear attack in a New York City suburb. The boy was playing in his backyard when the animal attacked him. Police say they were forced to kill the bear. The boy is expected to be okay. Finally, a new warning from the CDC for anyone who owns small pet turtles. Don't get too close. They've linked a salmonella outbreak across 11 states to small turtles. It's gotten 26 people sick and sent at least 9 people to the hospital. Turning now to the weather, and there is a lot to talk about. We begin in the Dominican Republic, where a tropical storm is still battering the country. Tropical storm Franklin is being blamed for at least one death. The big concern right now is flash flooding and mudslides, especially in the mountainous regions where up to 15 inches of rain fell in some spots. Franklin is expected to strengthen into a hurricane over the Atlantic Ocean sometime tomorrow. The big question, Where is it headed next? We'll talk to NBC meteorologist Bill Cairns about that in just a moment. But first, more than 100 million people are under heat alerts stretching from Minneapolis to Mobile. Upper 90s and triple digits everywhere you look, including Chicago, where they played a baseball game today.
Scorching, blazing hot day in Chicagoland. We showed you the dew point, and it's just soggy. Not really comfortable. Those are the brave souls sitting in the sun. Most of the folks who are here have found shelter in shadows here at Guaranteed Rate Field.
There you go.
Or in the Louvre.
That's a chapeau for a day like today.
Maggie Vespa is in Chicago along Lake Michigan. Maggie, a crazy day to be playing baseball in Chicago. Also a crazy day to spend all day out there reporting in it. But we are glad you are there. Tell us, how are people trying to stay cool?
Well, not going to White Sox games. I don't understand those people, quite frankly, but I guess good on them. Like anybody who lives in Chicago, you know White Sox fans are hardcore, but we were there, we were talking to them, and I kept saying, like, you sure? Like, you didn't second guess this at all? And some of them said, I actually did second guess it. You saw how empty the stands were. That being said, a lot of people super cognizant of this heat wave. I mean, they really have no choice. It is so stifling. We're here along Lake Michigan. A lot of people have been jumping in the lake all day, and many of those, it's very possible, are coming from the school districts that are closed. Downers Grove, a suburb just west of Chicago, they canceled their first day of school, which was supposed to be today, postponing it to Friday. Chicago Public Schools vowing to keep kids inside in the air conditioning, but canceling all outdoor activities. Even people who are used to the Midwest in the summer, they're used to it being hot, they're used to it being muggy. Even for them, this is extreme. Take a listen.
It feels like it's a million degrees out here. NCAA doesn't permit you to run once it gets to like a certain heat temperature, and it reaches it at like 8 a.m. Your body can go into shock, you can get heat stroke, and just in general, like your body wouldn't process the training as well because you'd be running slower, breathing heavier, so it wouldn't be as good.
That was the DePaul women's cross country team. They were out pre-dawn running, going through their run this morning. Their coach said you cannot run in the heat. You know, one thing that I want to point out, Ellison, we talk about the heat a lot, and a lot of times we get comments online from people saying, listen, it gets hot in the summer. Like, what is the big deal? Take this into account. Across the Midwest and across the South, basically by the end of this weekend, we will see 170 cities with new record highs if these forecasts come to fruition, which a lot of them are. So that is how unprecedented this heat wave is, Ellison.
Yeah, a lot of people forget when we're talking about this. We talk about it not just because it's uncomfortable, but because heat kills more Americans in this country every year than any other weather-related event. When you're talking to people, Maggie, do they feel hopeful that there's going to be a bit of relief soon?
They do. And in the Midwest, you know, they're right. I mean, basically, this is supposed to break here in the Midwest and kind of across the plains by Friday. So like by the weekend, it's going to be almost oddly comfortable when you think of how uncomfortable it is. And that's kind of one of those big temperature swings that we're seeing more and more of during our climate crisis. Like it'll be mid-70s by the weekend. But down south, they're in it for the long haul, as they have been really all summer. A lot of places expected to kind of remain under this heat dome well into next week, if not in some places actually well into September. So it is a long road for them and just incredibly uncomfortable and, as you point out, dangerous in the meantime. Ellison.
All right, Maggie Vespa, thank you. We appreciate it. Hurricane season in the Atlantic is well underway. For weeks now, we have been telling you that ocean temperatures have been uncharacteristically warm. And now, according to one tropical scientist, another record. In a period of 39 hours this week, we saw 4 tropical storms develop. Gert, Emily, Franklin, and Harold. That is the shortest span of time on record that 4 storms have formed in the Atlantic. Here to break it all down for us is NBC News meteorologist Bill Cairns. Bill, what are you seeing?
Yeah, Alice, I always hope that the hurricane season is going to be kind of quiet. We're not going to have many storms. I'm like, maybe we'll just get a couple names. And then all of a sudden we have a weekend like this, and I'm like, okay, I can barely keep up myself. Thankfully, Gert and Emily were like quickly dissipated, no problems whatsoever. We saw the Harold went into Texas yesterday. We've been dealing with Franklin back here over Hispaniola, Dominican Republic, and Haiti today. And so now we're almost halfway through all our names, and we're not even to the halfway point of the season. So a lot of people say, well, what happens if we get all the way down here to Vince and Whitney? I mean, cross my fingers. I really hope we don't. But we've had a couple of times, only 3 seasons have we used up all the names on the list, 2005, 20, and 2021. So the last couple of years, actually, we've used up a ton of names. And if we do that, there is actually a supplemental name. Then we go back to the A's all over again. Let's hope that doesn't happen this year. So here's the active pattern. So the only storm that we have named that the Hurricane Center is tracking, that is Franklin. That's the one that's moving off of Dominican Republic. We have 2 other areas of interest. This one way out in the Atlantic has a 70% chance. So that could be a depression tomorrow, maybe the next tropical storm. It's a fish storm. It's not going to cause any problems. And this other area doesn't look very favorable. So we're going to focus all our attention on Franklin, the one that's caused all the problems in the Dominican Republic today. It's coming off the coast now. There was a lot of big mountains, so it tore it apart a little bit. That's why the winds are very weak. But the Hurricane Center thinks this will get its act together over the next couple of days as it drifts northwards. We're almost done with the heaviest rain, maybe isolated totals up to 5 inches possible. And then the storm will be over the open water. Should be far enough away from the Turks and Caicos just for some minor issues there. Then the storm does a little button hook here. And look at this. Category 1 Saturday, Category 2 by Sunday, approaching almost a Category 3 major hurricane near Bermuda come Monday. Notice how far this is off the Outer Banks and the east coast of Florida. This looks to be just waves and rip currents. Surfers, this is the storm you love. Big storm off the coast, large waves coming your way. I'm sure the beaches will be packed with surfers, but for everyone else, I'm sure the red flags will be up. They'll be telling everyone to stay out of the water. And then this storm after this does look to head maybe possibly just off the Canadian Maritimes. No problems for any of us here on the East Coast or down through the Gulf of Mexico. The other story, the heat just is relentless today. One of the hottest spots in the country was Chicago, of all places. And even right now, it still feels like 115 degrees at O'Hare National Airport. Tomorrow, we could be near that record high of 100 once again. Memphis, we think you're going to break your record. Look at Louisiana. The actual temperature could up there about 107 degrees. And the only areas, Ellison, that gets relief, the northern plains and the Midwest. Saturday looks great. Kansas City, St. Louis, Chicago. But to the south, we just can't get relief. We're looking at September. I mean, New Orleans, triple digits right through the weekend.
Wow. All right, Bill Cairns, thank you. Coming up, the official Hawaii wildfire death toll is over 100 people now, but there are still over 1,000 people missing. We'll check in on the recovery mission there. But first, you gotta see this. You know you are not looking at photos from down under. That's a wallaby on the Coney Island boardwalk right here in New York City. A 22-year-old man was walking it around like a leashed pet you'd see at the beach. But that turns out is not allowed. Wallaby pets are illegal in New York City. We don't know if it's male or female or a Jack or Jill to be precise, but officials do say it is happy in its new home at a Long Island Wildlife Preserve. That's where it'll stay until the owner can prove proper permitting for the animal. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Here are the West Coast headlines we're following tonight. Flooding in the Grand Canyon has caused mass evacuations. More than 100 residents and guests near the canyon's south rim were relocated yesterday. And officials say the Grand Canyon Unified School District sheltered about 70 students. They have since been reunited with their families. USC football great Reggie Bush, you see him on your screen there, he is suing the NCAA for defamation.
The NCAA has made a statement about me, accusing me of engaging in a pay-for-play arrangement, which is 100% not true. Not only is it not true, but there's no evidence to even support that claim.
Bush's attorney says the NCAA falsely accused him of a pay-for-play arrangement back in 2021. Those allegations led to an investigation that saw the school stripped of its 2004 national title and resulted in Bush having to return his Heisman Trophy. The NCAA has not yet responded to the lawsuit. And despite all that rain, the grass may not be greener in California. That's because the state is considering a bill that would permanently ban watering grass at businesses, even if there is not a drought. We're talking office parks, car dealerships, supermarkets, and strip malls, just to name a few. Businesses, if those businesses are caught aiming for greener pastures, if you will, they could actually face pretty big fines, $500 a day. There is an enormous number of people still missing on Maui in the aftermath of those wildfires. The FBI puts the number at over 1,000, and as staggering as that is, they are still hopeful.
Someone may have called on the first day and said, my grandfather is missing, and they were recovered an hour later, but no one bothered to call us back, or we were unable to reach them. So my hope certainly is that all those 1,000 people, or whatever the number is, it varies day by day, are safe and sound and sitting in their home right now.
It's a heavy burden for the tight-knit town of Lahaina, where the wildfires have killed 115 people so far and destroyed dozens of homes. Meanwhile, another worry for the people of Maui: real estate speculators trying to come in and buy up properties on the cheap. NBC's Steve Patterson joins us now from Maui. Steve, what is the latest there? It looks like you might actually be in Lahaina now.
Yeah, we have moved to Lahaina, where the next phase of this search has really started. And although we just heard from that officer or agent who said that there is hope still left, and that's certainly true for a lot of families, hoping and wishing that that family member and that 1,000 people unaccounted for is somewhere at a shelter, at a home, the chances are now, as moving into even into a third week, chances and hope is fading for a lot of people as well. So this new phase is people digging through the wreckage, these cadaver dogs, along with these teams of searchers who have been here for weeks now. Instead of doing single-family homes, they're in multiple family homes. They're in complexes. They're in apartment complexes. They're in condos. They're doing strip malls to anything like a school or even a nursing home. So the search gets that much more complicated because there's literally another layer on top of it. Meanwhile, the remains here are so delicate. That's why it's taken so long, because everything here is done by hand, because they have to preserve those remains in order to pare that list down. That DNA matching is so sensitive, it requires the utmost care. And so that's what they're doing here. It's very slow, it's very grueling. In a lot of cases, it's going to be very heartbreaking for a lot of families here. Allison?
Steve, so many people there are worried about the future of Lahaina as the community turns towards rebuilding. What are people telling you about that?
So there's two sort of worries. One is the immediate future, and one is how this looks in 5 years, in 10 years, in 15 years. I would say for the immediate future, there are still people who are homeless, of course. I mean, 4,500 residents displaced. Some have now found temporary housing with the government. Others have been living with friends and family. Others have been struggling this whole time, and they're wondering how much longer they can keep their current living situation. The other is what happens to this place. Does Lahaina turn into Waikiki? Is this going to be this big land grab that everybody is so worried about? And those fears kind of came to a head yesterday during this city council meeting, where finally these residents got to kind of put their fears out there in front of elected officials after weeks of kind of holding it in and figuring out what to do for their immediate future. We spoke to some of those residents. Here is one of the fears. Listen to this.
This creates a chance for Hawaii in this great tragedy, center of the world, the media's eyes on us, to really turn this into something positive and make this what could be as an example moving forward for responsible tourism.
He goes on to sort of mention indigenous communities and how he feels like there may be some level of neglect with officials here, especially since some of those people have been living in generational housing for years and decades and even generations. So there's a worry that the rebuilding will leave those people out. That was also a fire battalion chief who was offering to take public officials in his truck to show people the work that they were doing. That's the level of sort of interfacing that he wants to see happen between officials in the community that he says has not been happening, and others would agree. Allison?
Steve Patterson, thank you. An eviction notice leads to a deadly shootout in Pittsburgh today. Deputies went to serve an eviction notice in the city's Garfield neighborhood when the person living there responded with gunfire. This led to an hours-long standoff. Local police, state troopers, and SWAT were all on the ground trying to gain control of the situation. Authorities say the suspect was shot dead in a shootout with police. NBC's Emily Aketa has more.
Hey there, Ellison. Well, we're learning from authorities that the suspect was pronounced dead earlier this evening around 5 p.m. after an hours-long police standoff that transpired throughout the day, really rattling this Pittsburgh neighborhood, this busy community. The Allegheny Sheriff's Office says that 7 deputies have been trying to serve an eviction notice before noon, before 11 a.m., in fact, and they were met with violence from the occupant of the residence, they say, who we are learning is being identified as William Hardison, according to several sources from our affiliate WPXI. And throughout the day, you could hear a flurry of gunshots sounding off throughout the area, scaring, really terrifying residents in that area. So many, in fact, that even the Allegheny County Sheriff said he couldn't put a number to the number of volleys, the barrage of gunfire that transpired over the course of several hours between 11 a.m. and closer to that 5 p.m. hour throughout the evening. And we saw through video people on the ground, drones, robots. They have been using in a negotiating tactic to bring the incident to a peaceful resolution. But those efforts, as we've been reporting, they failed. And in fact, the suspect, according to police, the police chief says that the suspect had even shot down several drones throughout the afternoon. They say he had been firing on the first and second floor of the home, shooting through windows, through walls. When the deputies were initially met by so much gunfire, they had run for cover. One sergeant, we're learning, actually was injured, fortunately just a minor injury, while diving beyond a barricade. This is an area, this part of Pittsburgh, that's very busy, and so they had to evacuate homes in the area. Even a daycare evacuated. Nearby schools were briefly placed under lockdown. It's less than a half mile from even a hospital. Now, fortunately, aside from that one officer who was injured, there were no other injuries reported. But again, the suspect, who we're hearing is being identified as William Hardison, has been pronounced dead after an hours-long standoff. Now, Ellison, the Pennsylvania State Police will lead the investigation moving forward.
Emily Aketa, thank you. For tens of millions of kids right now, it is peak back-to-school season. And for many this year, they are off to a new school, but not by choice. With public school enrollment shrinking across the country, more and more local schools are forced to shut down, displacing hundreds of kids during crucial learning years. And as NBC's Noah Pransky explains, the problem is only getting worse.
This breaks my heart. I moved to Indianapolis, a widow, 3 small children. This school is where I made friends. Not just my children, but myself also.
You probably know a mom just like Deshawn Jorman, hustling to get her kids out the door each morning.
Let's look both ways.
Spending hours shuttling them around town, and a mom who loved her kids' school.
This was community. This is not just a building. It's not just a school.
But falling enrollment at Indianapolis district-run schools down 38% over the past decade, and the falling funding that comes along with that led the district to permanently close 6 buildings this summer, including Francis Parker Montessori. The place where Deshawn and her kids used to play, learn, and gather was getting ripped away. It was a loss to their community, not to mention sleep. Deshawn's 2nd and 3rd graders not only now have to go to new schools, but she said the best option to keep them in high-performing programs was to now put them in different schools.
I do have to get up earlier. It's more gas because I have to be in 2 lines, drop-off lines. But gas is high.
Drop-off lines is that the worst part of the morning?
Yeah, now I'm going to have to fight the drop-off line.
Deshawn's got to do it all some mornings, but she's not alone. Public schools in dozens of states are facing a crisis. The Department of Education estimates there are today nearly 2 million fewer students in U.S. public schools than before the pandemic. One of the biggest reasons, America's falling birth rate at its lowest level ever recorded. And fewer students means fewer funds.
If you're trying to operate too many schools, you've taken resources out of your remaining schools to prop up these half-empty ones. And often that means there are not enough resources for extracurriculars, AP classes, and things like that.
But this perfect storm for shutdowns is also fueled by pandemic migration out of big cities and out of public schools, more public dollars going to private, religious, and charter schools, and the drying up of COVID relief money that helped many districts delay the inevitable until now.
We're expecting a lot more school closures in the next year or two as a result of the federal relief money running out.
which is why some superintendents, like Alicia Johnson in Indianapolis, say they're trying to get ahead of the budgetary cliff with a multi-year plan to consolidate buildings while simultaneously expanding educational offerings.
Change is difficult, and I am not asking, nor do I expect that this is going to be a process that doesn't create situations that families are going to have to do something different. We're trying to do the hard things that need to be done so that we can get to better things for kids and families.
Deshawn is no fan of the plan laid out by the superintendent, but in a way, both women are fighting for the same thing, a brighter future.
I want them to learn. I want them to be, have a level of confidence about themselves. And being in a good program can give you that.
That federal stimulus money was designed to create stability for schools through the pandemic. But as that dries up next year, schools are going to have to rely again on local and state budgets for almost all of their expenditures. And those belts are tightening, which means we do expect more schools to close in the next couple of years, giving a lot of kids who already dealt with a lot of disruptions in the pandemic even more. And that's what's got most parents concerned. Ellison will continue to follow this.
All right, Noah Pransky, thank you. We appreciate that. Coming up, 2 words for you. Fire tornado. It is real, and it was caught on tape in Canada. The story behind it and other headlines from around the world up next. Welcome back. Let's take a quick look around the world in about 80 seconds. At least 26 people have died after a bridge under construction collapsed in India today. It happened along the Northeast Frontier Railway. Prime Minister Modi said all possible help is on the way. An investigation to find the cause of the collapse is also underway. 2 massive tanker ships collided in the Suez Canal today. It happened when one carrying natural gas ran around, forcing the collision with the other ship. Traffic stopped flowing for a few hours. About 10% of the world trade flows through the Suez Canal. The United States has approved a $500 million arms sale to Taiwan. This is all happening as China gets more aggressive with the island. The deal comes the same day Taiwan's president visited a war memorial from the last time the 2 countries fought. And an extremely rare and scary sight in Canada, a fire tornado. It happened in British Columbia over Gun Lake. There is a state of emergency in the province after wildfires burned over 170 properties. Luckily, heavy rains today have helped douse some of the flames. Before we go, it is time for the future of everything. India just pulled off something humanity has never done before. We have the latest in the race back to the moon and the search for water in space. It is a historic day in space. India has become the first country to reach the south pole of the moon and the 4th country to ever land on the moon. Get this, a robotic moon lander known as the Chandrayaan-3. It touched down this morning. The SUV-sized lander has its own rover, which will test mineral composition and seismic activity over the next couple of weeks. Russia and India have been in a tight race to see who could get their spacecraft to the lunar South Pole first. Russia crashed their spacecraft into the moon a few days ago. So not only is this a big deal for India, it's a big deal for the U.S., too. Joining us now to help explain this connection is former NASA astronaut and commander at the International Space Station, Leroy Chow. Commander, it's a pleasure to have you here with us. Break this down for us. What did India do right in this situation, and what did Russia do wrong?
Sure. This was a pretty huge moment. India has a vibrant space program. They've been up and coming for a few years now, and this was quite an accomplishment. Only the 4th nation in the world to successfully soft land a probe on the moon, the first nation to put a probe down on the South Pole, which takes a little more precision because you've got to make the orbit changes and it has to be done correctly so that the spacecraft gets to where it's supposed to go. And so congratulations to them. As you pointed pointed out, Russia did crash their Luna 25 a few days ago. They were racing to beat the Indians to that landing site. President Putin desperately wanting a PR win, if you will, or a national prestige win. That didn't go so well for them. And that's a little bit of an indicator of kind of the decline of the Russian space program. And so India has really shown that they are now becoming a big space power. And it's interesting to contrast that with what's going on with Russia.
Yeah, so back in 2008, India actually made the discovery of water on the moon's south pole, right? NASA confirmed those findings pretty soon after. Why is finding more water resources on the moon such a big deal moving forward?
So the South Pole is interesting because a large part of the South Pole never sees daylight. That is, the sun never shines there. And so the idea is that there is a relatively large amount of water ice, just below the surface, so pretty close to the surface. And the reason that's important is because if you're going to establish a base there, like NASA wants to do, you need access to something like water, of course, just to support your crew, drinking water, just plain drinking water. But also you can electrolyze it and separate it into hydrogen and oxygen. The oxygen, of course, can be used to supply your breathing in your habitat. It can also, the oxygen and hydrogen can be used to help create propellants that you might use to refuel your spacecraft. So for a number of reasons, water is very important if you're going to actually put a base there. Otherwise, you're going to be totally dependent on a supply chain coming from the Earth.
All right. So it is all the future. And you could also potentially launch over to Mars from being in that area. Is that right?
Right. And so in the NASA architecture, we're going to have something called a gateway, which is a small space station that orbits the moon. And so we would stage perhaps a Mars program from there, having astronauts transport from the Earth to the gateway and then transfer into another vehicle to go somewhere like Mars.
Wow. Commander Leroy Chow, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it. That does it for us tonight. Yep, that does it for us tonight. I'm Ellison Barber. We will see you tomorrow. But until then, stay tuned now.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.